is the last thing that we have done in respiration, or do we have to start respiration today?
Ma'am, we started.
We have started. Okay, what is the last line that you've written?
Ma'am, this aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration.
All right. Okay, so we were seeing that during the process of respiration, first glycolysis happens.
Ma'am,
Right?
I finished this.
We have done this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have to start with breathing today, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now we know the difference between respiration and breathing. We know that respiration is the process in which the biomolecules are broken down to release energy. And talking about the breathing, so breathing is the process in which exchange of gases take place. Now, for that particular process, we have our whole respiratory system. Humans have a well-defined respiratory system in their bodies, isn't it? Just one second.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one second. Yes. So humans have a well-defined respiratory systems in their body, and with the help of that, we are able to take the gases that are there in the atmosphere into our body, and then we are able to release the harmful gases from our body to the atmosphere. Now, initially, how if we want to trace down the pathway of how the gases come inside our body, so we take the oxygen and all the gases are actually present in the atmosphere. So we take the air from the atmosphere and the air which contains the oxygen. Now we inhale it and we use our nose or the nostril for it. Then the air from the nostril goes into the nasal chamber or the nasal passage. From there it goes into the pharynx and then to the trachea, then to the bronchi, and then the bronchi divides into the primary and secondary bronchi. And lastly, all of it opens into the balloon-like structure that is known as alveoli. And this alveoli is the site of exchange of gases. Up until now, we have seen that the gases from the outside are coming to the inside of the body. But now in the alveoli, what happens? The gases, they get exchanged in the alveoli. And remember that this alveoli, it is a balloon-like structure present inside our lungs. And these alveoli, they are lined with a lot of blood vessels. Okay. Also, yeah, I forgot to ask you to switch on your video. Switch on your video.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so as I was saying, that alveoli is surrounded with a lot of blood vessels. And do you remember what diffusion is?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me, what is diffusion?
The higher from the higher concentration, lower concentration.
Exactly. The movement of substances from a region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration. So in this alveoli here, the gases, they get exchanged because of the diffusion process only. Okay. So because of the diffusion, the gases can get exchanged in the alveoli. Now see, talking about the human respiratory system. So the human respiratory system, it contains the nose, it contains the nasal chamber, the pharynx, larynx, trachea or the windpipe, contains the bronchi, bronchioles, and the alveoli. And this alveoli and bronchioles are present in the lungs. Now, the bronchioles and alveoli are enclosed in the pair of lungs. So, we have two lungs in our body that are present in our thorax region. Now, remember one thing, that these vessels, or like for example, the pharynx, the trachea, the bronchi, most importantly, the trachea and the bronchi, they are surrounded by incomplete cartilaginous rings. Now, these cartilaginous rings, do you know why they are present?
No, ma'am.
See, the cartilage rings are present on the trachea and the bronchi so that when like air is being you can say exhaling out, like when we are exhaling the air, so at that time air is not there, so it can get collapsed, it can get stuck like this. So to prevent the trachea from sticking onto each other or the bronchi to get collapsing, cartilage rings are present. Okay, so we'll mention this here also, that cartilage rings are present to avoid collapsing. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And collapsing of what? Collapsing of trachea and bronchi. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, apart from all of these structures that we have discussed, there are certain other structures such as the rib cage, the muscles, like certain muscles that help in the process of respiration. Those are also there. Then there is diaphragm, and all of these structures, meaning these are the extra structures, and they help in the process of inhalation and exhalation of gases. Inhalation means the taking in of gases, and exhalation means the giving out of the gases. Any doubts up until now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now let us see how it actually happens. See, whenever we breathe in, okay, so what happens is that if you feel like when you're breathing in, you feel like your chest goes up, right? When we breathe in, our ribs, they lift up, and the diaphragm. Now see, we know that some other structure is a diaphragm. Now see, if this is the structure of, like, these are the lungs. So the diaphragm is a muscle, which is a dome shaped muscle, which is present underneath the surface of the lungs. So what happens while we breathe in? So our ribs, they lift up, and simultaneously, the diaphragm flattens. Initially, it was dome shaped, but while we are breathing in, it flattens. Okay, and because of which the volume of the chest cavity increases, right? Because the chest cavity is also lifting up, so the volume is increasing. Now, always remember this thing, this relationship between pressure and volume. Pressure and volume are inversely proportional to each other, meaning if the pressure increases, the volume will decrease, and if the volume increases, the pressure will decrease. So there is an inverse proportionality to it. So as I said, that the volume of the chest cavity increases. So what will happen to the pressure of the chest cavity?
It will decrease.
It will decrease. Now, since the pressure of the chest cavity decreases, the pressure of oxygen on, like, in the environment will be more, and here, since the pressure is decreasing, so the pressure is less, so the oxygen will move from a region of high pressure to low pressure, and with this the oxygen will come in, right? And then this oxygen is transferred throughout the whole entire body with the help of blood. See, and how does it happen with the help of blood? See, our blood contains RBCs, right? The red blood cells. And these red blood cells, they have a red color pigment in them, which is known as hemoglobin. So when this oxygen binds with the hemoglobin, it forms a compound that is known as oxyhemoglobin. And since blood is circulated throughout the entire body, this oxygen is circulated throughout the entire body. Now, whenever we have to exhale, so our ribs would come down, the volume of the chest cavity will decrease. So what will happen to the pressure of the chest cavity?
It will decrease.
The volume is decreasing.
And then it
While
will increase.
exhaling, yes, then it will increase. So because of that, the pressure of gases, meaning the pressure of carbon dioxide inside the body, is more than the atmosphere. So during exhalation, while we are breathing out, the carbon dioxide from our body will move out of the body. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts up until now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, as I told you, the this thing, the final position wherein the gases reach is the alveoli. right? The balloon-like structure. And they are richly supplied with blood vessels. And their membrane is very thin. It's like very thin membrane. So what happens is that as soon as the gases reach the balloon-like structure, that is alveoli, and since it is surrounded by the blood, so now the oxygen from the alveoli will diffuse into the blood. And then this blood will be taking the oxygen throughout the entire body. Clear? And same way, when the blood
You
will
can explain again.
see, for the oxygen, we inhale the oxygen, it came inside our body and then it went to the alveoli, right? The balloon-like structure. Now this alveoli, for example, if I draw it like this, now this is surrounded by blood vessels throughout. So now when the oxygen came here, this oxygen will diffuse into the blood because the concentration of oxygen in the blood will be less and in the alveoli it will be more. So oxygen will diffuse into the blood and then this blood will take it through the whole entire body. Now the body will use this oxygen and give out carbon dioxide, right? So now the blood will take like carry the carbon dioxide to the alveoli, and again from the blood now the carbon dioxide will move into the alveoli and it will be expelled out. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts up until now?
No, ma'am.
The whole entire this thing is clear to you, the respiration system of humans?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Now you can note it down. First, you take down this pathway. Yeah, and you can switch off your video.
You can scroll.
Are you able to see the screen, dear?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, it has gotten stuck. Just 1 second. Okay, now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, can you scroll? Ma'am, can you scroll? Ma'am, can you scroll? Ma'am, can you scroll? Done, ma'am.
Okay. Any doubts up until now?
No, ma'am.
All right. This was about the human's respiratory system. Now, see, what happens is that the blood that is there, that is responsible for the transportation of oxygen throughout the whole entire body. But how is it happening? So, for that, there is a proper, you can say, circulatory system present so that the blood
Ma'am,
can. Yes.
ma'am, where is this cartilage rings present?
As I told you, the cartilage is like the rings of cartilage are present surrounding the trachea, the windpipe.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. So that the trachea does not collapse when air is not present, so that it won't collapse. Now, see, we have seen that the blood is responsible for the transportation of oxygen throughout the whole entire body. Now, how does that happen? See, blood has certain components. And remember, one most important thing about the blood is that the blood is the fluid connective tissue of our body. It is obviously 100% fluid. It is a liquid that is present in our body, and it is responsible for the transportation, and it connects, like blood is present everywhere in our body, right? So the blood is the fluid connective tissue of our body. Now the blood has certain components present inside it, out of which the first component is the plasma. Now, the plasma is just like how the cell has cytoplasm, it has a clear fluid structure. Same way, the blood has plasma. And this plasma is responsible for the transportation of food, the transportation of carbon dioxide, and also the nitrogenous waste. And then the blood has certain other components other than plasma, such as WBC, RBC, and platelets. Now, WBC are known as leukocytes, RBCs are known as erythrocytes, and then the platelets are also present. And each of them have their own particular functions to perform. Now, the blood is circulated throughout the whole entire body of ours. And how does it happen? So, the blood is actually pumped by a pumping organ which is there in our body, and that is the heart. Our heart is the pumping organ that is responsible for the pumping of blood in our body. Now, human heart has four chambers, and those four chambers are like two of the upper chambers of the heart are known as atria, and two of the lower chambers of the heart are known as ventricle. Now, the heart can actually be divided into left and right sides. So, there is right atria, and below that is the right ventricle. Then there is left atria, and below that there is the left ventricle. So four chambers are there. And remember that each of these chambers, they are separated from each other. So there is no mixing anywhere. For example, if right auricle is there and left auricle is there, both of them are side by side, but between them, there is the presence of septa or a wall so that they don't get mixed up. Then in between the right auricle and right ventricle also there is a wall present so that the content does not mix. And same goes for in between the two ventricles also there is a wall, and in between the left auricle and left ventricle as well. So those are known as septa or walls. Now moving forward, human heart, as I told you, is four chambered heart. There are two auricles and two ventricles. But then if we talk about other organisms, so there are organisms, for example, fishes. The fishes have a two-chambered heart. Talking about the amphibians and reptiles, like what animal would you call as an amphibian?
Frog. No. Turtle.
Amphibians are those organisms that can live on land and in water as well. Frog was the right answer, in fact. Frog is an amphibian. And then reptiles are the ones that have a scaly body, such as the lizards, the turtle, like the tortoises, the turtles, and the crocodiles. All of these are reptiles. So all the amphibians and all the reptiles have three chambers in their heart. They have a three-chambered heart, except for one, that is crocodile. Crocodile is the only reptile that has four-chambered heart, just like how us humans do. And humans and all the birds, they have four-chambered heart. Any doubts up until now?
No, ma'am.
All right. Now see, what happens is that always remember that the left side of the heart, or first you understand this. whenever blood is carrying carbon dioxide, meaning blood is mixed with carbon dioxide, so that kind of a blood is known as deoxygenated blood. Okay, it is the impure blood, it is the dirty blood, it is the deoxygenated blood. And the blood that has oxygen present in it will be called as the oxygenated blood. Now, what happens is that in the right side of the heart, okay, right side is responsible for the receival of, or the you can say it receives the deoxygenated blood, and the left side receives the oxygenated blood. Now, do you know what are arteries and veins?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me something about them?
This arteries transport oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart.
And veins?
They transport deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lung.
Correct. So, talking about arteries and veins, we know this one very big thing, that all the arteries, they are responsible for carrying the oxygenated blood, isn't it?
Except pulmonary artery.
Except pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery is responsible for carrying deoxygenated blood. Same goes for veins. All the veins are responsible for carrying deoxygenated blood, except for one, that is the
Pulmonary vein.
which carries oxygenated blood. Very good. All right. Now let's talk about the circulation which happens in the case of fishes. Now, fishes, they have two chambered hearts, meaning they have one auricle and one ventricle. So this auricle receives the deoxygenated blood. And then this blood goes from the auricle to the ventricle. And then the ventricle pumps out the deoxygenated blood. Now this deoxygenated blood gets carried to the gills, where this blood that is deoxygenated gets oxygenated.
Ma'am,
And then, yes?
your sound is low.
Oh, is it fine now?
Yes, ma'am.
As I was saying, in the case of fishes, the deoxygenated blood comes into the auricle, and then from the auricle it goes into the ventricle. Now the ventricle pumps out the deoxygenated blood. Now this deoxygenated blood gets carried to the gills for the process of oxygenation, meaning the gills will expel out the carbon dioxide and it will give in the O2, take in the oxygen. And then this oxygenated blood is distributed to the whole entire body. So we see in the cases of like fishes, what happens? The heart is pumping out deoxygenated blood. And in this type of circulation, wherein the heart pumps out deoxygenated blood, we call it as incomplete circulation. Clear?
Ma'am, can you explain again?
Deoxygenated blood is coming to the auricle because they have only two chambers. So they have one auricle and one ventricle. Now the deoxygenated blood comes into the auricle. From the auricle, it goes into the ventricle. And now the ventricle pumps out the deoxygenated blood. Now this deoxygenated or CO2 rich blood, it goes into the gills because the respiratory structures for fishes is gills. So in the gills, the blood gets oxygenated, meaning it gets purified. The CO2 is given out of the body of the fishes and oxygen is given to the blood. So now the blood becomes oxygenated and then it is distributed to the whole entire body. So this type of circulation wherein the heart pumps out deoxygenated blood is known as incomplete circulation. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts up until now?
No, ma'am.
All right. Okay. So, and do you have any doubts in the respiration part, like the respiratory system of humans?
No, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so today, like since the time is up, so we'll keep it till here only for today. And in the next class, we'll continue with how the circulation is there in amphibians and reptiles and then mammals and birds. Okay. And in the
Yes, ma'am.
meantime, if you do have any doubts, you can write it down and we'll discuss it in the next class. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, I'll meet you in the next class.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Okay, bye-bye. Good night.